Welcome to MakersPod, conversations by Alan Gray Makers. You'll get to learn from artisan entrepreneurs that are building great businesses across South Africa and learn what it truly takes to build a trades business too. These are their stories. Welcome back to MakersPod. Today, we have a very, very special announcement and something I think will be amazing for every artisan in South Africa, and is truly a special moment.
We're talking about the Imara Fund. Ba, 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 ba. Exciting times, guys. Really, really excited. Cool.
Well, love the excitement. Just to kick off, please introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Prince Nwadeyi. I am one of the co-founders of a business called Satana Capital. We're a business that specializes in building innovative finance products for the informal sector and underserved SMEs. And it's such a privilege to be here and to be trusted and given the opportunity to steward the Imara Fund.
Yeah, with the launch of the Imara Fund, which is a very special and important moment, this is South Africa's first artisan fund. What does this moment mean for you and Satana Capital?
Well, I think first and foremost, if anything, it's a privilege. We don't take it lightly. Our business, like I mentioned, focuses on developing innovative finance products for the informal sector and for underserved SMEs, which we've done within the informal retail space where we fund spaza stores, and within the fuel finance space where we provide ride-hailing and e-commerce Uber drivers, ride-hailing operators with fuel across any petrol station. So we've always been at the bleeding edge of innovation as it relates to developing products for underserved SMEs. But this in particular is specifically very special. One, because it's the first time this is actually being done, right, in South Africa for artisanal operators. And then secondly, I guess, the opportunity to once again pioneer something alongside Alan Gray Makers and E Squared, where we can really make a tangible impact in the lives of people and SMEs is an absolute privilege. And for us, it's a massive and a great opportunity to be part of it.
Yeah, often artisans are overlooked when it comes to finance, and these kinds of businesses have been underserved for so long. Why have you chosen these people specifically and these types of makers to fund?
So I guess the reality is we've got to find a way to support individuals who, one, play a critical role within our economy, but number two, the role of artisans in this country typically we underlook them. We don't really recognize the role that they play, and they are a critical job creator within the context of our country, right? We actually have a shortage of artisans as well in South Africa significantly. And for us, the view of being able to provide innovative finance products to these operators to ensure that they're able to grow and ensure that they're able to become sustainable and become scalable businesses is an absolute privilege. And I also think the sorts of financial tools that we've developed, such as being able to enable them to access invoice discounting facilities, purchase order financing, tooling financing with other partners within the ecosystem where they can actually go and get those materials and supplies from, is absolutely special. And it's stuff that would ordinarily be available to formal institutions or more larger businesses. And effectively, the agenda of capital is not just to help businesses grow, but equally to enable them to compete, right? And that has a trickle-down effect on what it means for them as entities, but also for the broader mandate of both E Squared and Alan Gray Makers, right? And also our agenda in wanting to ensure that we develop SMEs and support SMEs in a responsible manner.
Yeah. So if I'm an artisan listening to this and I'm getting excited because I'm hearing all the things that I feel like can enable me to grow my business, whether it's the invoice financing and the different instruments that you mentioned. How do I start to learn how I can access the fund and start to explore the opportunities that exist there? Please explain those three different instruments that people can start accessing through the fund. Okay,
cool. Awesome. So the first product is the invoice discounting product. So typically what happens is that an electrician or a plumber has gotten an opportunity to go, let's say, fix a blown pipe or sort out some electrical faults in your house. They typically have been dispatched, let's say, by an insurer in that specific instance. The typical challenge that faces a lot of SMEs is the fact that they'll have to wait longer than 30 days to actually get paid, right? With the facility that we enable these SMEs to then access is we say, okay, cool, you've done the work, right? You deserve your money. So we'll fund it. So we'll actually give you the capital that's effectively equal to what it is that you've actually done or what's owed to you by the insurer. And at the end of the period, we'll go get the money from the insurer. So that's effectively what invoice discounting looks like. And it could be an insurer, it could be a construction company, it could be any sort of business or SME that you've done services for, will effectively fund against that. The second component is that typically you'll find that people get large projects, let's say to build houses or to repair or to do maintenance, and typically materials are a key component of it. So what we've done in effect alongside Allen Gray Makers is we've started forming partnerships with a lot of material suppliers in effect. And what happens is we enable them to go and access those materials and credit. We obviously finance that on the back end. And we have direct partnerships where guys can go and pull stock against the line that sits there. And then at the end of the period, those companies that they've done work for, once again, repay us in that specific instance. And then the third component is the issue of asset rental financing. Typically, one of the key things that, and this is such an important product because it actually enables these artisans to be competitive and actually go for bigger projects. They tend to have to rent certain equipment, such as like cherry pickers and stuff like that. And they are actually sometimes really core requirements for them to be able to access certain quality of deals. And the role that we play is actually enabling them to access those machinery. Once again, through the various channel partners that are there, that we're able to then finance that. They're able to utilize those assets for the period of that specific construction project or repair project. And at the end of the day, we also recoup our funding through the specific SME or corporate that they're working with.
Yeah, it feels like you guys have really thought about how these tools will enable the growth of the businesses of these artisans. And if I'm an artisan, I'm getting excited because I can hear all the opportunities for me to grow. How can I access the fund?
So what's actually very unique is that unlike traditional funding sort of applications where people would have to go and write huge long letters and all of that sort of stuff, we've actually made it fairly seamless. Applications run via WhatsApp chatbot, right? And initially it's targeted at the Allen Gray Makers community of SMEs. Hopefully in future, we're looking to expand it beyond that, but they're effectively going to be able to access us via WhatsApp, a WhatsApp line that will be issued to them. And literally they engage with the chatbot, which effectively captures all the details, all the documentation that's required as a consequence. And through that specific process, all the comms flow. And we're able to make a credit decision, funny enough, in under 24 hours, right? In that specific instance, our actual engine makes a credit decision in 3 seconds once we've actually gotten all the information that's required.
Sure, that sounds impressive. I think I haven't seen other funds really go out into trying to meet the people that really need the work that they're doing through a WhatsApp chatbot. Why was that the solution you guys chose?
So I guess the biggest thing is that when you're designing a product, you've at its core got to figure out who your customer set is, right? And at the same time, you've got to be able to meet people where they are. And for us, we understand that artisans are people that are on the go, always on the job. And sometimes it's difficult for guys to sit down, start compiling all the documentation, writing stuff down, speaking English and all of that sort of jazz. Let's make it simple. We understand what their key pain points are. A lot of research and work has gone into this, both on our side and also alongside the Allen Gray Makers team, to really be able to appreciate how best to design the most seamless process to ensure that these operators are funded and supported in a responsible manner.
Yeah. You spoke about just a vetting process and just like being able to get the approval within 24 hours. But what do the requirements look like? So
really, it depends on each sort of product. But at its core, what we don't necessarily require guys to send us through their management accounts and all of that sort of jazz. We're not a traditional funder, right? A lot of our analysis really goes into understanding what's going on in your bank statements, number one. Number two, we also look at certain behavioral components, right? And then the third component really, we specifically focus on looking at what's the actual underlying credit risk that's facing us, right? And we tend to try as much as possible to look past the underlying SME, right? And actually look at, okay, cool, who are you doing work for? at the end of the day? What's the likelihood of this individual actually paying, right? And how can we mitigate the downside of that actually not happening in that specific instance? So insofar as, yes, we're taking a bet on the underlying entrepreneurs, right? Our model has been tried and tested across multiple fields, and it's yielded the same sort of results. Thus far, we've had about a 99.9% repayment rate across the three verticals that we are already operating in. And we think that it's going to hold true. Obviously, there's certain nuances in this specific context, and I can't share the secret sauce fully of what it is that we do. But the truth of the matter is, at a high level, that's really the agenda in terms of approach, in terms of what we think about when we look at requirements.
So how does a partnership to build something like this, that is so well designed for artisans, come about with Allan Gray Makers and E-Squared?
The truth of the matter, it comes about when people who are sitting with capital and people who have willing hearts are willing to take bold steps, right? To think about how we can fundamentally reshape the trajectory of how capital flows to underserved SMEs, specifically within the makers sort of environment and artisanal space. And I think that's really where the journey began, right? It started at that particular point. The reality of the matter is that we've had track record with E-Squared before. They've seen us operate both within the context of what we've done within the Spaza store space, the ride-hailing sort of space. And the truth of the matter is that and I say this with all sense of humility, the other operators out there, but I think they realize that there'd be a real benefit in continuing to partner with us in this sort of agenda, right? And I think that's really how it came about. But at its core, it was the willingness of heart, the quality of leadership, and the ability to see the future differently. Right. I think more often than not, people sit with capital and they ask themselves, where else can we get return? But people are not willing to go and understand markets, right? Yeah. People are not willing to understand how these SMEs operate and how can we design and effectively deploy capital in a way in which that it can speak to that context. And I think what Allan Gray, Makers, and in specific E-Squared as well has consistently done is they've consistently gone where other capital providers haven't, and in so doing crowded in other capital by proving that out. And we've seen that specifically within our own business, right? Where we've gone with their capital and gone into spaces where traditional finance institutions wouldn't operate, and have the very same traditional finance institutions say, okay, cool, how can we follow in with more capital?
Yeah. If I'm an artisan now, I'm fully in. What's the big opportunity here for growing and scaling my business?
Well, I guess at its core, the big opportunity here is, and we've said this to a number of the makers within the program, is we said, listen, see us as your business partners, right? We're the guys who come alongside you to help you grow. We're the guys who come alongside you to ask you the tough questions, right? About, do you really need this kind of funding in this way? And how can we structure it in the best possible way, not to hurt your business? Because traditionally what would happen is a lot of operators would tend to get capital from loan sharks, right? And that cash is quite hurtful to these businesses. It doesn't actually necessarily help them grow. It solves a short-term problem. I need 50 grand, I need 100 grand. But at its core, you end up seeing that it's detrimental to the long-term growth of the business, not just because of the interest charge, but actually because at times the capital or the money doesn't actually go into solving real value creating agendas within the business. Yeah. They're solving at times both personal and individual issues, but they're sometimes business linked. And I think the way in which we've designed the products have largely been focused around, are we funding the value making process within the business? And are we disproportionately ensuring that this business is going to be set up for success to be able to scale? Our vision is not that these entrepreneurs end up being dependent on this capital. We see this capital as catalytic to their growth.
Yeah. So what does success look like, and how do you guys measure impact?
So at its core for us, our success is their success, right? Their success is ours. We want to see these guys grow. We want to see them grow not just in terms of size, but revenue. We want to see jobs created at its core. And more importantly, we want to see, as the Imara Fund, more capital providers coming to the table and saying, hell, yes, we're going to back this agenda and we're going to back this vision. And we think that it's worth partnering further with the Imara Fund to continue to go and do such a bold thing within the market. And the truth of the matter is 12 months down the line, they're going to see alpha. They're going to see the returns, right?
Yeah.
They're going to see the track record. They're going to see the repayment rate. And they're going to see the impact that we've created and the jobs that have been created. And for us, it's just such an absolute privilege to be part of this process. But the truth of the matter for us, that's what success looks like.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the MakersPod. I think this is an amazing opportunity. If you're an Allan Gray maker, this is your opportunity to do something really special, to grow your business and be enabled by guys that really care. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Cool.